Hello, you're watching Global Insight, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. From BTS and Squid Game to kimchi and fried chicken, South Korea's culture has taken the world by storm with K-pop and K-dramas, K-food and K-beauty products. The worldwide appeal of the so-called K-culture is what may have led to 26 words of Korean origin being added to the Oxford English Dictionary last year. And today we speak with a scholar who has been at the forefront of bringing K to global culture and defining it for people around the world. I'm joined by Jieun, Professor of Korean Linguistics and Senior Research Fellow and Dean of Degrees in the Hertford College at the University of Oxford. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor. It's an honour to have you on our show.
Thank you so much for having me today, this morning.
And well, Professor Kerr, you are, you're pretty much a global authority in the field of languages. And well, first of all, what inspired you to pursue the study of linguistics?
Oh, well, it's a long time ago, but I was really fascinated by how children learn language, how humans acquire language within a very limited time. So that was my first inspiration of studying in linguistics.
I see, and you've been working on East Asian languages in particular, but last year was quite a milestone for South Korea as well. Through your research, as a fruit of your research, I think, you managed to add new Korean words to the English dictionary last year, to the Oxford English Dictionary. And while are Korean words becoming that much more common and, I guess, recognized by non-Koreans? I mean, are people actually using these words?
Absolutely. It is very, how should I say, I feel very sort of almost emotional when I hear Korean words spoken by non-Koreans. And of course, in the real world, like, everyday life, you see a lot of Korean, or hear people speaking Korean words, or even like make a gesture like finger heart by some Western celebrities, very common. But most of all, I think sort of these the communication or about K-words or Korean wave are happening in the Twitter or social media space. For example, like last year alone, I know that a K-pop fandoms had 7.8 billion tweets. So I think it's sort of very much visible in everyday life, but also very much visible, especially in social media and Twitter space.
I see. In your previous research, you've actually focused on how regular people, not even scholars, they're actually translating contents on their own on popular content such as cartoons or literature through basically fan fiction or fan work. So I guess that in a way exemplifies what you just said, how people are really using Korean words in their everyday life as well, and really taking initiative to adapt it to their own language. And we're living in a world where English is really regarded the universal language, and the Oxford English Dictionary, of course, has a very long heritage dating back to the late 19th century. And well, in terms of getting these 26 words updated and added to that dictionary, what was the process like for you? I mean, was it rather tough getting these words into the dictionary?
Not at all. There's so many words, like, as I said, 7.8 billion tweets. So many people talk about Korean words, Korean culture, and it's always fed by new Korean film and drama and so on. So K-pop fandom started the sort of Korean wave, but now it's, Korean drama, films, very much like becoming another very strong fandom. So in a way, I think these Korean fandoms also communicate not only in real life, but social media. And so basically OED, Oxford English Dictionary, as you said, is very much has a great history. And James Murray had a question about how we define English words in 1911. But nowadays, I think it's sort of English being lingua franca means that English is really absorbing every word, whether that's sort of Korean origin or any other origin, but based on the frequency of use by people. And in that way, Oxford English Dictionary is very advanced by using Twitter as a very much like a database to feed the new words. And in a way, this Korean wave fandom, they all talk about these words and not necessarily translating. In the past, for example, like Deborah Smith translating vegetarian, we hear a lot of address terms translated rather than transliterated. But nowadays, oppa, 언니, And these words are very much like used by people, not only the fandoms, but also non-fandoms. And OED had these words in its dictionary, but also like, in the few years, we will include some more. So my kind of prediction is whether English, some aspect of English language which lacks, for example, like address terms or more interpersonal relational words may be borrowed by Korean. So a part of Korean may be implanted in English language in the future. That is kind of my prediction. And in a way, there will be more and more words will enter into OED and more, English language in general because of the exponential growth of Hallyu.
Right, and well, as a Korean journalist, I've certainly noticed that when writing Korean pronouns, for instance, there used to be a little bracket, an explanation of what it means. But I've noticed that global media have stopped doing that, so that was quite surprising for me as well. And well, we're seeing K-pop, K-dramas, K-food, and even policies or K-policies making waves around the world. And what do you think K really represents to the world? I mean, what do you think is the global appeal here?
Absolutely. K is for everything these days, like, K beauty or, as you say, K policy or anything.
And I think K almonds.
Absolutely. So it kind of goes beyond our imagination. And in a way, K because of Hallyu, K become a new almost branding fashion. But in a way, I think what has to be understood is that K does not mean just Korean. It's not translation of Korean. K is kind of newly another thing we need to understand is not like traditional Korean culture actually means K. K is something that actually the consumers or like the people who are enjoying Korean cultures and basically non-Koreans, they kind of reinterpreted the Korean culture and presented it into the global stage. And so this is actually, the K is not Korean, but it's something like, beyond Korean. It's inspired by Korean culture, but it's sort of new entity that has its root in Korean, but that goes beyond Korean. And I think it's very important for Korean people to understand that K does not mean actually necessarily Korean. For example, like, when I think about sort of some words like chimek, mukbang, which we put last year at 대박, these words are not in the Korean dictionary, but these are actually in OED. So this is another thing that Koreans kind of wonder, this Korean culture, but this is K culture. That's sort of, how Korean way consumers, the viewers, kind of coined these words and included them in the OED, but they're not necessarily Korean traditional culture. So in a way, Korean traditional culture inspired K-wave, but one must remember that this K is not necessarily translated into Korean. So it's kind of more, we have to have more open-minded for understanding K, the meanings of K.
Right, so the Koreans may have put that K out there, but it's not just Korean anymore. It transcends really just one single culture. And what do you think the Korean language itself says about the Korean people?
I think it's a very good question. Director Bong Joon-ho, when he talk about 1 inch barrier, but actually this 1 inch barrier is quite, more sort of, how should I say, it's more than just 1 inch barrier. But one of the things about Korean language compared to, and also a lot of Asian languages, compared to English and Western European languages, is that we have very the interpersonal expressions are very rich. So for example, Koreans never call each other first names. We all have address terms, even gyopos or the Korean diaspora, even if they forget Korean language, they never forget these terms. They don't basically Koreans don't call each other's first name. Interpersonal relational expressions are very rich in Korea, and I think Korean language, and I think that represents very well about Korean people, that how we function or interact is not basically pragmatic needs, but emotional expressive needs or building solidarity are very much important part of the language. And I think that represents very well about Korean people.
Oh, that certainly is true. There is sort of a way you address everybody, really. And well, what are some Korean words that are quite hardest, that are to you the hardest to express in English, and also vice versa?
Actually, people in the past talk about 정 or han or these sort of abstract emotional words. But what is also very interesting is there are so many untranslatable words we talked about in the past. But again, as I said before, when some people, people translating Korean novels, there were so many words that they were kind of confused troubled whether to use, sort of how to translate these words. And nowadays things have changed so much that in a way actually transliteration is becoming a possible option. So in the past, like Koreans, so long time we have been translated into from English to Korean, but less so from Korean into English. But I think the trend is changing right now. And I think for those difficult words, hard to translate words, probably not will be translated anymore, but will be transliterated. And for example, like so many motion words, sound do word like sound do or movement words and existing in BTS songs. BTS fandoms really discuss the meanings, how to translate this sobok sobok and so on. At the end of it, they decided to do sobok sobok as sobok sobok. So in a way, like so these difficult words, rather than people trying to translate these words into English, which doesn't work in many ways, so they actually receiving this word, importing those words. So I think in the future there will be more or less more transliterated words rather than very much like imperfectly translated words. I think that's my prediction.
Wow, then I suppose in that case they can really embrace the wholeness of that word instead of trying to kind of adjust it to their own understanding. And well,
absolutely.
How can South Korea really make this K-wave or Korean wave a lasting global culture rather than just a passing trend or phenomenon?
I think that's also a very, very important question. And the way how Koreans understand, one of the words that Korean people, when they describe about their culture, our culture, it's very much like, put much more emphasis on, maybe I'm talking about the language side of it. People talk about our identity and purification. One of the messages also we heard in the Hangul Day was like, we need to kind of make Hangul, protect its purity and make it sure that we have its identity and so on, purification and so on and so forth. But in a way, the real dynamic power of Hallyu is its hybridity and innovative nature. So in a way, when you look at the chimek and mukbang, for example, there's the output of the very much hybrid culture and hybrid reality of Korean day-to-day life. So in a way, in order for us to be able to fully, how should I say, to be able to, make the Korean wave not just, end right now, but to continuously flourish, one has to really accept that, that the real dynamic power of Hallyu Korean wave is not like keeping its purity, but to have the open mind and to make it kind of go beyond the Korean culture. It, as I said, it started from Korean culture, but one has to have a very open mind to make it more, to go global and to also to understand the hybridity and innovative nature is at the very heart of K-wave success.
And well, through your research throughout the years, you've really been contributing to making global culture that much richer and that much and just really flourish more, just not for a single country, but for the whole of humanity, really. And we want to know about your future research plans as well. So could you tell us more about that? So
related to this topic, I've just launched a new series about Korean wave in translation. So I'm basically trying to work out sort of the meanings of K. And at the moment, in fact, I'm making a documentary in Oxford University about searching the meanings of K. What does actually K mean in the global stage? So these are so K-wave in translation that I launched last year with Loudreach, and this documentary would be something that I think could contribute to the studies of Hallyu.
Well, there's a K in your name as well, Professor. Well, thank you so much for this interview today. It was an honour to have you on our programme, and hopefully we'll hear more about your future projects. That was Professor Jieun, Professor of Korean Linguistics and Senior Research Fellow in Hertford College at the University of Oxford. Thank you again so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for today.
Also, thank you to our global viewers. Global Insight is available from Monday to Friday at 9:30 a.m. Korea time. Please tune in again, and wherever you are in the world, have a great day or evening.